Shalawam, Israel. I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI, the Bawanas to the apostles and the elders, great millstone, and Shalawam to elect out there doing this work of faith, live with love and true sincerity. Right now, I want to get into a topic, pretty much laying backing off the video Pastor Hard did, referring to Hannibal, as an Israelite, in which, us all in the know, we know this. And I remember Pastor Hart getting into that this same topic, a while back, and I just had some other information, to, just to drive the point home even further, based upon this information that I got from this Edomite here, as you can see on the screen on Wikipedia, from this Edomite named Nahum Schultz, and as you can see this picture, if I can blow this picture up, yeah. So this is him right here, Nahum Schultz, and whoever these other two Edomites are. But this is the guy here, Nahum Schultz, who wrote, a few books during his lifetime, and he's really known for this one book in which we're going to get into, in which I had the PDF file for. But I just want to read this one statement here. So Nahum Schultz, November 1872. Died December 1966, was a Russian-born Israeli writer, translator, and archaeologist. He was known for his studies of the secret Jews of Portugal and Jews of Africa. Now, this one sentence right here says a whole lot. For one, the word secret. All right. He's known for his studies of the secret Jews of Portugal and Jews of Africa. Now, what would be so secretive about Jews being in Portugal and Jews being in Africa? It happens to be the fact that they were actually so-called black men, so-called black Hispanics. Well, at this time, there was just the Southern Kingdom over there, so the so-called African Americans, so-called West Indians, and the so-called Haitians of today were still on the eastern side of the world during these times, okay? And of him referring to the secret Jews of Portugal and Jews of Africa. Now, when have there ever been a time in history have we known Jews or so-called Jews, these Edomites, you so-called white people, dwelling in Africa during during whether you want to say the medieval times, if you will, during the Dark Ages, better yet, or during the 14, 15, 1600s, and even times before then, 1700s, even up to the 1800s. When has there ever been a time where you Edomites have been known to dwell over there in Africa and been known as the Jews of Africa? There has never been a time like that in history, period. So these are telltale signs that you have to look into this information to see exactly who they're talking about, all right? Esau puts a lot of information out there, but it's just our people don't want it, okay? So with that, we're going to get into, matter of fact, let me bring out this scripture real quick. So 2 Corinthians 13:8, for we can do nothing against the truth, but for the truth. All right. So everything that Esau has tried to do, to attempt to downplay our history and lie about us and make us think that we nothing more than a bunch of Africans, which we're not African. All right. African monkeys trapped in the jungle. Okay. They only helped to push the envelope for us to realize who we are, according to prophecy, according to the things of the Bible, So you're only helping us, man. And it's always edification out there to prove you devils wrong with everything that you've lied about, period, man, period. All right. So I want to get into this book here, which I have in PDF form, from Nahum Schultz. It's called Travels in Africa. Now he gets into a lot of different information. Some information is off, and but a lot of it is on point as well. All right, so I just want to get like 1 or 2 points right before I get into Hannibal. All right, what was that point at? Slovakia. Yeah. Okay. It's yeah. Some historical aspects. Page 221. It says records show. Blow this up a little bit. It says records show that there were Karaite Jews in Morocco from the 9th to the 16th century. All right. And this is not talking about you so-called white people. This is referring to Jake. All right. Leo Africanus reports that he saw them in the Atlas Mountains in the 16th century. All right. So Leo Scipio Africanus, he reported this, man. So it's not just only this guy here, Nahum Schultz, all right, that did his research, but he found out through other, other Edomites that this were to be true, all right. And we can always point out a fact of when you look at the what's the movie? Not the movie, the series Shaka Zulu. Now Shaka Zulu, he was a Hamite. He was a so-called African. But when you look into the part where the doctor was talking, and he said, if you ask me, these are the wandering Jews of Africa, man. So when they're talking about that, they're talking about us, man. That's us Israelites, man. All right. Like I said, you had the southern tribe that was over there during these times, So it says, all this leads us to believe that there was a distinct Jewish group, African in origin. As I said, we're not Africans, but this is where Esau gets a lot of his information mixed up at, because, the Lord didn't give you devils everything. He gave you bits and pieces that we are to, bits and pieces of information that we are to dissect, that we are to know what has to be discarded, what's false from what's accurate, because he's given us the knowledge, all right? So in this scripture here, basic scripture we all know clearly proves that point. Exodus 11:7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. We're two complete different nations, all right? One is underneath the nation of Ham, and we come from Shem, all right, period. So going back into this point, it says, as distinguished from those Jews who came later from Italy and Spain. So he's saying what? That the Jews that he saw was different from the ones that later came from Italy and Spain, the fake Jews, all right, you Edomites that came out of these different places, okay? It says, these are the descendants of the ancient Jewish colonists of the classical period of those Jews who came later with the Arabs from Egypt. What's the other point I wanted to get to? Because I just wanted to point that point out, but there was something else I wanted to get into. Yeah, I think I want to go straight down to 227. They get in talk about the different, tribes that were in those different areas of north and in the west coast of Africa. But this is the point here. All right, it's chapter 1 from Carthage to Tunis. All right, it says Carthage to Tunis, magic names which stand at the head of two of the most glorious chapters in the history of the great Semitic family. So he's letting you know what from the great Semitic family. We are Shemites. We are not Hamites, man. So it clearly lets you know that it's talking about us, right? Even though Esau, he's a Shemite as well, but this refers to Israelites, all right? The true biblical Israelites, so-called Black Hispanics and Native Americans. It says Carthage, Hajdat had shot new city, as Apostle Har went into, that the Carthage word Carthage, getting into that basically mean new city, all right? It says the great city of Hannibal, and also from something I looked up a while back, they were calling this the new city because this is where they were planning on to start everything all over again, just like how we were supposed to have the inheritance of the land of Jerusalem, so they looked at this as a new opportunity, and that's why this was called Carthage, all right? Yeah, so it says, which for centuries kept in check the might of Rome, and the fall of which preluded and perhaps determined the fall of the Hebraic sister city Jerusalem, Carthage. Okay, so what? This was a city that was supposed to be a mirrored image, just like Jerusalem. All right, it says, whose very vestige was destroyed by her Roman enemy, her civilization, her influence, her very monuments today. Thanks to French science, emerges again before the eyes of men in all the fantasy of ancient decorations, with her hundreds of sarcophagi and statues and basements of her temples. Nearly 4,000 inscriptions in the ancient tongue of Canaan have been unearthed in the city of Carthage, dating from the days of Nehemiah, of Simon the Just, of Hannibal, of Hadrusbal. Nearly 10,000 names of citizens of ancient Carthage are on record now, a city directory, as my late master M. Philip Berger so well put it, together with a complete catalog of professions, of rituals, of usages, of manners. So what? That gets into what? Our customs. So all these different things in which they're referring to, all the records and stuff like that, would have said the catalog of professions, who did this and who did that, the rituals, the usages, and the manners, that all applies what? To our customs, as us being Israelites. Because the scriptures speak about that, right? From the book of Esther, right? And this is how we know who we were and how we were able to separate ourselves and distinguish ourselves from those Hamites when we dwelled in the northern and the western coast parts of Africa. Okay, because of our customs, because of our laws, because of our statutes, right? So this is Esther 3:8. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all the people. Neither keep they the king's laws, therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So what? he said it right there. What? And their laws are diverse from all the people. Neither keep they the king's laws. So this is what established us as having a difference from the other nations, because this was our inheritance, and all we were doing was practicing the things that the Most High passed down unto us. All right. So it says, and most valuable of all, we have found again the ancient language and writing of Canaan, the rich idiomatic speech of a city which once counted 700,000 inhabitants. And we Hebrew writers, we who write and feel in our biblical tongue, it's not, I mean, yeah, you could say that. But the Bible ain't yours, it belongs to us, all right? It's the ancient tongue that all nations spoke at once, but it was given down unto us, man, the pure language, the purest language upon the face of the earth. Have recognized at once that this so-called Phoenician language is nothing more nor less than Hebrew, a pure Hebrew dialect, nearly the same as was spoken in the country of Israel in the days before the Aramaic and before the Masorah came to fix its orthographic rules artificially. All right. The same is true of the script, which is with the minor few differences. Okay, because as time goes on, things change. It's just like when you're in school or something like that, and you passing down either a chain letter, or you passing down the message from one person to another, just orally. Certain little things, you might see certain little differences here and there when things get passed on. That's just the way that history works. But the overall message and the overall truth of the matter stays the same. Okay? So everything that they wrote, it was of a pure Hebrew dialect, man. Everything that they spoke was of a pure Hebrew dialect. All right? This is the information that they came across. All right? And also in Carthage, too, they had grave sites and everything with Hebrew inscriptions on it as well, man. All right? So I want to go down a little bit more on it. It says, I go to this point. It says, thus language and script show us that this Phoenician, just as Apostle Harvard's getting into, a lot of people they'll call it the Phoenician tongue, but it's because it came from that region, but it's nothing more than Hebrew, Thus language and script show us that this Phoenician is for us Hebraists nothing but Hebrew. The population of Carthage was Palestinian in origin and Hebraic in civilization. they be trying to mix stuff up with this whole Palestinian thing, man. All right. So and he breaking civilization. And if instead, because remember earlier it said that the Jews that were different, they were of Africa, pretty much, you know. So it says, and if instead of succumbing, the city of Hannibal had triumphed over Rome, it is probably, nay, almost certain, that Hebrew and not Latin would have become the dominant language of the Mediterranean countries. It is certain then that it was in a Hebrew dialect that Hannibal commanded the troops which he led across the Alps. All right. So, hey, yeah, I believe that was pretty much the point. There's other information in here as well, but yeah, that's pretty much the point. There's other points that I kind of did want to hit, but I think I ended there. Um, oh, check this part out right here. It says, actually, I start from right here. It says, I was given the opportunity later of expressing my opinions on the subject, for in the present state of Phoenician archaeology, it is impossible to make positive statements. A lecture which I delivered at the Institute of Carthage on the Hebrew and Phoenician civilization of Carthage was taken up by the general press and discussed by a number of notable scholars. In this work, based upon direct observation and documentary evidence, I shall content myself with a mere statement of the facts. I will only mention here that I still firmly believe that there never was a language of Canaan as such, as that it was merely a dialect of the language of the Hebrews. Okay, so he just getting to the point of the fact that it all comes from the Hebrews, the Hebrew and Phoenician civilization, the whole text of it, the whole language of it, and it all comes from the Hebrew, man. All right. And this is well noted when you look up certain information, even with the English language. 75% of English words derive from the Hebrew, man, you know? So, that was pretty much it. I just wanted to bring out that extra information pertaining to that and Hannibal. Lord willing, I'll probably probably either do another part or get into more information on this as well, as I've been doing more research. So, with that, I hope this short segment was edifying. I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI, the one to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and SHALAWAM to elect out there, doing this work of faith and labor of love and true sincerity. SHALAWAM.